Have Ernesto Ruiz Tiben, who's also at the Carter Center and who will give a talk on the eradication of guinea worm. Ernesto.
Thank you, Richard. Good morning, everyone. In the beginning, there was CDC. The idea of eradicating guinea worm disease had its genesis at CDC in 1980, mainly as a result of the interest of Dr. Donald Hopkins and Bill Foege, then director of CDC, in what could be the next disease to be eradicated beyond smallpox. Remember that smallpox eradication came about right around 1980 when the world was declared free of smallpox. In 1984, CDC was designated the WHO Collaborating Center for Research, Training, and Eradication of Guinea worm disease, or dracunculiasis. They continue to, the Collaborating Center continues to function, and the director may be here among you today, Dr. Sharon Roy of CDC. In 1986, again, Dr. Hopkins and Dr. Foege convinced President Carter that the Carter Center should take on guinea worm eradication globally, and President Carter agreed, and not only to allow his name and prestige to and advocacy to work on behalf of the eradication campaign at that time, but also to allow the Carter Center to, as an institution, to assist countries both technically and financially. At this moment, the role of the Carter Center is to provide technical and financial assistance, interrupt transmission of guinea worm disease in the remaining endemic countries, and prepare those countries for certification of eradication. WHO is responsible for certifying the countries at the very end of 3 years after the report of the last indigenous case. In 1986 was also significant because for the first time the World Health Assembly passed the first resolution calling for elimination of guinea worm disease in the context of the first international decade, 1980, 1990, for drinking water and sanitation. And it was in that context that CDC promoted the idea that that decade could use the declining cases of guinea worm disease because it's only transmitted via drinking water. That was the concept and the notion then. And therefore, reducing cases of guinea worm disease would be an indicator of the success of the water and sanitation decade. The global burden of guinea worm disease or dracunculiasis in 1986 was estimated to be 3.5 million cases from a swath of countries across sub-Saharan Africa and into Asia, including Pakistan and India, and later on Yemen as well. 120 million people were at risk by virtue of living in areas endemic for guinea worm disease at that time. Our notions of or factors known about guinea worm disease and its eradication in those days were are listed here. There's no immunity to infection. People can become infected repeatedly over time. No effective medication or vaccine available. No wild animal reservoir for the parasite. The period of transmission is seasonal. People become infected and they don't know they're infected, and therefore over the 1 year incubation period, they're actually carrying the parasite from one place to another. and therefore surveillance systems have got to encompass all of the areas where people can travel to and from so that they can be detected when the worms decide to emerge. And transmission was only via drinking water. The interventions applied against the transmission of dracunculiasis are listed here. Sorry, I think we went too far. The thrust of the campaign has always been based on educating people and empowering them to take action if they know the origin of the disease, how they're getting infected, and what they can do about it to prevent transmission, including the designation in each affected village of village volunteers who then have the job of educating their friends and families within the village, looking for cases multiple times during the week to detect them, filling out the village case register, which is the basis for reporting from each village about the status of the eradication effort in each village monthly to the program, and including preventing persons from with signs and symptoms of guinea worm disease from entering sources of drinking water and thus prevent contamination of those sources. In addition to that, abate or temafos can be applied to sources of drinking water contaminated by patients if that occurs. It's certainly in endemic villages, all of the sources used by the village that are deemed unsafe are targeted for treatment and forecasted to be treated at a certain time of the year based on the number of cases and the timing of those cases during the previous year. All of the programs, national eradication programs, advocate with the water sector organizations for provision of safe drinking water. And since about the mid-1990s, all of the countries started offering cash rewards for information leading to confirmation of cases. Currently, all of the 4 remaining endemic countries offer the equivalent of US $100 in local currency for such information. This map shows where guinea worm was in 1986. The country startups took a long time, mainly because of absence of funding. Many of you don't know, but back in those days, CDC did not have a clear mandate to support programs such as guinea worm eradication. But India was the first country to launch its own program on its own time frame and never requested assistance from the Carter Center or other donors, although there were NGOs and others collaborating with the program in India. Our first country startup was in Pakistan. We had a meeting at the Carter Center in late 1987, and Barney Klein, who's sitting right here, and I departed for Pakistan on December and spent one of the coldest nights of our lives in the middle of the northwest frontier province in Pakistan. And a year later, Nigeria and Ghana began to be assisted by the Carter Center. I should add that many of the program startups were possible during these years because of the contribution and collaboration of UNICEF, who supported CDC and also collaborated with the Carter Center to allow the countries to develop plans of actions and budgets for the national case search. Each of the countries did a village by village case search, trying to identify every community affected by guinea worm disease, and in each of those communities, a mini guinea worm eradication campaign was implemented. So in 1989, all of the endemic countries that were operational at the time began reporting about their cases monthly. the reductions in numbers of cases have been steady over the years of this long campaign. As of today, there were 22 cases reported in the world. This is the same number of cases that were reported during 2015. The data for 2016 is provisional through the end of October. We have not had internationally exported cases from one country to another since 2012, and that remains a reflection of the reduced number of places and people infected with guinea worms as time goes on. There were only 17 villages reporting cases so far this year. There's a typo here. It's not 2015. It should be 2016. And I apologize for that. And compared to 23,700 and some villages that were included in the eradication campaign back in 1993. And as I have already mentioned, there are 4 countries which remain with endemic transmission of guinea worm disease. Chad has reported 14 cases so far this year, 10 of them, or 71%, contained. South Sudan, 5 cases, 3 of them contained, meaning prevented from contaminating water. And Ethiopia, 3 cases, 2 of them contained. Mali has reported 0 cases so far for the first 10 months this year, and may finalize this year reporting 0 cases of guinea worm disease. The numbers shown here indicate the year of the last known indigenous case reported. First of all, and the second year is the second column of years. It indicates the year when WHO certified those countries free of guinea worm disease. 17 of the 21 countries affected with this disease have interrupted transmission. 15 of them have been certified. Sudan and Kenya remain to be certified out of that group. I may add that Angola and the DRC are 2 countries that never had guinea worm disease, at least in the modern age, that remain to be certified as well. So the map shows highlights the 4 countries that remain endemic. In Sudan, there are only 3 villages reporting the 5 cases that I've mentioned, and those are highlighted as red dots on this map. All 3 villages west of the Nile. As we like to say, the most endemic area in South Sudan was the eastern Equatoria state here on the lower right-hand side. And when the program began there in 2006, there were 20,000 cases of guinea worm disease identified in South Sudan in over 3,000 villages. That area has been cleaned of transmission and has remained so this year. In Ethiopia, again, this map shows the villages that reported 3 cases a year ago, and those reporting cases again this year. I did mention that we had reported 3 cases again this year. And they come from a very small area in Gambela region of Ethiopia. And in Mali, which has not reported a single case so far this year, we have shown in the map the places where cases were reported a year ago, and which have not reported any cases so far this year. And also the areas under surveillance that are shaded here with the diagonal lines. And the yellow represents the areas of Mali that are considered insecure because since the coup d'etat in 2012, which deposed the government of Mali then, and that continues to be a major problem for the eradication campaign, not only Mali but globally as well. In addition, since the last 4 or 5 years, we've We have seen a growing number of infected animals, mainly domestic dogs, but some domestic cats. The major contributor to these animal infections is Chad, and a particular area of Chad where there is a very intense fishing industry, artisanal fishing industry, which from which 30 to 40,000 metric tons of fish are collected annually, and that represents 4 or 5% of the GDP of Chad. So it's a very important industry. Everybody along this stretch of river, the River Chari in Chad, depends on protein from aquatic animals for their sustenance year-round. People in this area are both fishermen mostly during the dry season, November through May, and farmers from May to November, again when the harvest is done. So we have in this campaign we have been confronted with some game changers, as I call it. First of all, we have had a lot of interest in determining for the first time what is D. medinensis. It's the only, appears to be so far, the only species of Dracunculus that we know of in Africa. We don't think that is correct. In this hemisphere, there are at least 3 or 4 or 5 species of Dracunculus that are indigenous to the Western Hemisphere. All of them use a transport host. The species in this country, for example, Dracunculus insignis, which is a guinea worm of the raccoons here in the eastern seaboard and in Canada. And they don't get infected via drinking water. So we have hypothesized that in Chad there is likely a transport host, an aquatic animal of some sort, playing a role in the transmission of guinea worm disease. The other big factor here is that if Dracunculus medinensis is transmitted via drinking water in communities where the sources are commonly used by many, you surely expect outbreaks of the disease of tens of cases, if not more, the following year. We have not seen that pattern in Chad since the disease was detected again after a 10-year hiatus without cases in Chad, reported cases in Chad at that time. So we do believe and have now, via a number of research projects that are underway, determined that indeed there are third-stage infective larvae of guinea worms in frogs occurring in the natural environment in Chad. These frogs have been collected and dissected and confirmed that, and also in the laboratory with our collaborators at the University of Georgia, we have found that laboratory animals, frogs, and certain species of fish are also able to not only ingest the infected copepods, but the larvae migrate out of the copepods into the somatic musculature of those animals and remain viable for a period of time. We also know that now third-stage infective larvae can remain alive in this transport host for a period of up to 4 months. And further studies underway may determine that this may go on for a longer period of time. Tadpoles are predators of copepods, and that's how they became infected, and the larvae remain in the copepod right through the transformation of the tadpole into an adult frog, which lasts a number of months. So we have now, for the first time in this campaign, found out that there are 2 possible modalities of transmission. One is via the classic way, via drinking water, unsafe water, and the second is via ingestion of some aquatic animal that is improperly cooked or cured or is consumed raw. So these are the enhanced interventions that we've put in place in Chad to try to create an impact on the transmission of guinea worm disease, both to humans and to domestic animals in Chad, including cooking and curing the fish more thoroughly, not allowing the dogs to eat the entrails of aquatic animals, and not allowing the dogs that are down with signs and symptoms of guinea worm disease to contaminate sources of water. There is a $20 cash reward that is in play in Chad and in all of the other countries where the infected dogs are being reported for tethering the dogs as soon as the dogs become sick with guinea worm and begin to be showing signs of being hurt and ailing. And of course, we continue to use a bait in all the contaminated sources. This is a map of the River Chari showing the cloud of villages under surveillance. There are about 1,500 villages represented here in the blue dots, and the red dots indicates the places or villages where cases of guinea worm disease were reported from and confirmed. There are 14 cases that, as I mentioned, indicated here. For the purist, you'll see that there are 3 dots in CAR. It's probably because the GPS points are not quite accurate, but they belong inside Chad. This graphic shows the trends in dogs since 2012, when the surveillance system for guinea worm disease in humans was launched. Immediately, infections in dogs were reported. And the number of infected dogs has kind of doubled each year. However, we have noted that the rate of increase, the percent change in infections in dogs has climbed commensurate with the doubling of dog infections, except during this year, the rate of the percent change has dropped significantly. We believe that is a reflection of impact of all of the interventions that are in play in Chad. I can let you know that there are about 30,000 dogs resident in the villages under surveillance, and only about 1,000 have become infected. So the potential for the number of dog infections to double or triple is there, but it's not happening. So that this next transmission season, beginning in January through June, July, is going to be proof of the pudding as to whether this assertion is really valid or not. But we do expect to see a continuous reduction of this percent change down to 0 and become negative next year. So the recent challenges are listed here. We need to interrupt now transmission of guinea worm disease both in humans and in domestic animals. We need to continue examining the role of which aquatic animals are playing the role of transport host in the context of Chad and other countries reporting dog infections, determine how long the third stage infective larvae can live and be viable and cause infections in this transport host. Determine whether there is a valid wild animal reservoir at play as well. And that's a very important question. It goes to the crux of whether we can eradicate guinea worm disease or not. And lastly, I mentioned the insecurity issues certainly confronting Mali and South Sudan, which are great cause for concern. Certainly to me, these countries cannot be certified free of guinea worm disease under conditions of security now. That requires accessibility by the international certification teams to every place in those countries that they want to go to, and that's not possible at this moment. And lastly, even the dogs are getting educated about guinea worm disease nowadays. Thank you very much.
So next up, we have Ernesto.